welcome back to DCS Debrief. A little bit of a change from normal operating at the moment for a lot of people, including me. So I've been asked by Tactical Pascal if I can produce a video about formation flying, and of course the answer is yes. However, it is going to be a little bit off the cuff. I've actually just recorded one attempt, but the microphone was completely distorted, so I'm going to have another go now, and hopefully I've learned some lessons, and I've actually got some a decent kind of idea of how I'm going to present this now. So I've got an AI aircraft set up that I'm formating with at the moment. We're flying north-south legs in Nevada, so he will from time to time be turning to position us on the other leg, so you'll just have to bear with me while we do that. So I'm going to run through a little bit of close formation, what close formation looks like, what references I use. I should say, as usual, my usual disclaimer, if you're watching the other videos, I'm not a fighter pilot. These videos are only really relevant in the game. However, I do have experience, a little bit of experience flying in close formation, although obviously not in fighter aircraft. However, I do have a decent working knowledge of the techniques. And I do have a little bit of flying experience in other aircraft types. So hopefully the kind of blend of experience that I have in the real world and the experience that I have flying in DCS will in some way be useful to you. You're not going to be able to see the control inputs that I'm making, unfortunately, and that's deliberate, because really it's the principles rather than the precise control inputs that I want you to take away. So I'm going to talk about close formation. I'll talk a little bit about the close formation positions, what close formation is, what it's used for. Then we'll move out into what I call an intermediate formation. The Brits call it fighting wing, the Americans, at least the US Navy, call it tack wing, and then we'll go out and I'll just demonstrate a little bit of tactical formation. No turns, just line abreast tactical stuff, and how to maintain position line abreast, and that'll be that. For all of the formation, the main overriding principle that I want you to remember is that your control inputs need to be smooth and progressive, not jerky, okay, and not abrupt or aggressive. The smoother you can fly and the more under control you can keep any changes in your position, then the better you're going to be able to fly in formation. So here we are in close formation, what I would call close formation. I'm on an Oculus Rift headset, although of course, my resolution is not as good as it could be. That doesn't make any difference to you, of course, because I'm recording this in 4K, and I'm going to master it out at HD, so you'll actually have a better view than I will, or than I have. But of course, I'm going to have better depth perception. So, close formation then, or what I call close formation. We're currently in a close formation regime called Echelon Right. Okay, so Echelon is to the right or left of lead and slightly to the rear. And the way that I'm going to get, or the way that I'm maintaining in that formation, is I'm using reference points on lead's jet. Okay, no idea if these are the right reference points, and they will be different, obviously, depending on the type of aircraft that you fly. But for those Hornet pilots out there who want to do it the same way as me, I use the tip of the Sidewinder rail underneath the cockpit, the leading edge of the canopy, there, just about in line with the leading edge root extension, as my primary reference line. So the primary reference line is going to give you the correct angle. It's going to make sure that you're on the correct angle. Just one second, if you can hear that, my Discord's going crazy. I'm just going to pause us there a second and take care of that. Okay, back with you. Okay, so that primary reference line is going to give us the right angle, but it's only one dimensional. We can move up and down that reference line, and we're in about the right position here, the right distance. But look, we can get closer and maintain that reference line. There we are, a little bit too close. Here we go, very close, if I can arrange it without crashing into this dude. There we are, very much closer than I would want to be for real, but still on that primary reference line. If we go out, you can see that we can get out to beyond out of close formation there. We're still on that primary reference line, but we're too far away. So how are we going to judge how close we are? Well, we're going to use another reference line from a different part of the aircraft that produces a different angle, and therefore at the convergence of those two angles, we will be at the right position. So I'm going to come down my primary reference line. My secondary reference line that I'm going to look for is going to be where the trailing edge of the near horizontal stabilizer is in line. Of course, he's going to roll out at that point. Is in line with the trailing edge of the opposite fin. So for me, the trailing edge of the right horizontal stabilizer in line with the trailing edge of the left fin, that's my secondary reference line. So let's put that sidewinder rail back on the leading edge root extension. There we are. So we're just a little bit too close there. There we are. That's a bit better. So sidewinder rail tip on the tip of the leading edge root extension, and the trailing edge of the near side horizontal stabilizer in line with the trailing edge of the far side rudder. And that's us in the right position there. For me, flying in close formation when I'm just transiting around with somebody else. If we're coming back to do a formation landing or something like that, then I'm going to be a little bit closer, and I'm going to kind of eyeball that. If you can hear that in the background, sounds like the air ambulance is being kept busy. Okay, and that's about the distance that I'm going to look for when I'm doing really close formation work, like formation landing or stuff like that. Okay, and that's with the horizontal stabilizer very slightly behind the vertical stabilizer. So how do we control that position? We've got to obviously control our position horizontally, forward and backwards. We need to be in the right position. We're going to do that using the throttle. We need to control our position up and down. We're going to do that using pitch. And we need to control our distance from lead, and we're going to use that using roll. And I'm going to show you how to achieve that in that order. So if we want to move forwards, we've got our cruise power set now. We've got co-airspeed with lead, and he's at about 290 knots. Okay, if we start to find ourselves a little bit behind lead, just there, then we obviously need to accelerate. There's no good us slamming the burners in because we'll just build up too much speed and we'll overtake. So we've got 290 knots. We're not getting any further behind, so we're going to blip the throttle forward and then back to the datum position that we had before, and that's going to generate a little bit of overtake. See, we're moving forward on lead now. When we want to stop, we're going to blip the throttle back and then reset it to datum again, and that's going to slow us down. Now it takes some time for us to slow down, so we need to anticipate that time to slow down. You can see we're too far forward now, so I'm going to blip the throttle back and then reset datum. That's going to get us going back. Then I'm going to anticipate, blip it forward, and then put it back to datum. And that is now us and a little bit, still a little bit too far forward. So I'm going to blip back again, back to datum, generate the undertake, blip forward, back to datum, anticipating, and that's us on datum there. So that's how we control our position fore and aft against lead, blipping the throttle. I'll wait for him to turn around, and then I will show you how to adjust your position vertically. Notice even at this distance, I'm not actually getting my eyes into the cockpit very much. I'm very much flying with reference to what lead is doing. And that's one of the disadvantages of close formation, is that it doesn't give you an awful lot of time to get your heads in and monitor your own sensors and your own aircraft. And even in the turn I can use that blipping technique if I start to get a little bit too far behind lead or a little bit too far in front. And just before we roll out, I'll point out that if any of you are subscribed to Tactical Pascal's YouTube channel and Discord, then I'm around his Discord a fair bit at the moment, as it happens. Those of you who aren't, please think about subscribing to Tactical Pascal. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and also go ahead and check out the Air Warfare group. It's run by Juice, who previously ran Juice the Aviator's YouTube channel. He's changed that wording now to better reflect the nature of the material that he's bringing out, and both he and Pascal have some excellent videos available, so get yourselves over to their YouTube channels and check them out. And if you're around Tactical Pascal's channel, then you find me there. Then of course, if I've got the time, I'll be happy to fly with you, and if you want to do some formation, then I'll be happy to tell you everything that I know. The benefit, of course, being that it wouldn't take long. Okay, so back in formation using the throttle blipping forwards and backwards to control our position fore and aft. If we start to get a little bit below where we want to be, then we're going to use our pitch to change our vertical position. But what we don't want to do is continue to pitch, because that will generate a very rapid rate of climb, and then we'll get into a pilot-induced oscillation. So if we pitch up and we continue to pitch, you can see that even as we pass through the right position, if we reverse the pitch at that point, we're just going to end up soaring away, going up and down. So we want to avoid that. So here we are a little bit low. So we've recognised that we're low, we're going to correct. So we're going to raise the nose, set a slightly nose high attitude, hold that attitude, and wait. As long as we have the nose above the horizon, we're going to have a rate of climb, and that situation is going to be resolving itself. Don't rush, take it nice and slowly. As we come up to the right vertical position, then we can anticipate very slightly and go back to 0 degrees nose up or 0 pitch. We just have a little bit more to do. There we go, we're on references. If conversely we're too high, then we can do likewise. Lower the nose, set the attitude, wait for the correction to take place, and as we reach the correct position, we can reset to nose on the horizon, and that's pitch taken care of. And that leaves us with the last one, and the one that people have most trouble with. Okay, now the reason that we are able to keep our horizontal spacing from lead is that we are both going along parallel headings. We're not if we offset those headings at all, we're either going to converge or diverge, and we'll use heading convergence and divergence to adjust our lateral spacing. However, if I roll and I hold that angle of bank, my heading is going to continue to change, so that angle is going to be constantly changing, which means I'm continuously going to be increasing my speed away from lead. Likewise, if I roll towards lead and I maintain the angle of bank, then that angle is going to be increasingly converging, and my speed towards lead is going to be ever increasing. So how do we manage that? Well, let's have a look. What we want to do is we want to set an offset angle and hold that offset angle while we correct our position. So here's, of course he's going to turn at this point. Right, remember everything I've just said while he turns around. Right, here we are back in formation then. So to diverge from the leader, we're going to create a divergence by rolling on angle of bank and then rolling off again. So roll on, roll off. Even that small angular difference is going to be enough for us to separate from lead. Look how fast that's happening. In order to stop that separation, we're going to roll on, roll off in the opposite sense. If we want to converge with lead, we're going to roll on, roll off, and that will generate some closure. Doesn't seem like much to start off with, but just wait. As we get closer, that will turn into quite an obvious rate of closure. There we go. And then when we're happy with our spacing, we can roll on, roll off. To maintain distance. If we don't use roll on, roll off, if we just roll until we get a position right and then roll out again, of course we're still going to be converging, so we're going to want to roll away. And then we're going to end up in this horrible position where we're soaring away in roll, which is affecting how much power we need to stay in position, and we're going to end up doing all this, and Lee's going to get very nervous because he's going to think we're going to fly into him. It doesn't look very good on the videos, you know, it all goes to a bag of spanners. So using that roll on, roll off technique is really going to help you moderate your closure from lead, and that is going to make your formation flying very much more smooth and very much easier to maintain. And while he goes around the corner, I'll take this opportunity to demonstrate that actually you can use this technique in all these techniques in the turn as well. If we're a little bit too far behind, we're going to blip the throttle forward and back to datum to accelerate, back and back to datum to stop. If we get a little bit too high, because the references are changing, look, we can see we're too high, then we can adjust to a slightly nose down attitude, hold it, and then adjust to zero pitch. Flip the throttle for spacing. If we get too close, let me just get myself out of position so we're too close here. Now clearly we're in a roll. However, if we get too close, we can just roll a bit of that off, roll it back on again. We generate some spacing. Roll it on, roll it off again to hold that spacing. If we want to close, we can roll on, roll off. We'll generate some closure. And when we're happy with our lateral spacing, we roll on, roll off to stop ourselves closing. Okay, so that's close formation dealt with. Clearly you'll need some practice, and maybe even it would benefit you to get some tuition. And like I say, I'm available on Tactical Pascal's channel if you want to do some formation flying. I'm more than happy to teach you everything I know. It's not very much. This is a formation called Echelon Right, as I described earlier. I'm briefly going to show you line astern, which doesn't get used very much. Line astern is around about here. Okay, well below the jet wash, and then echelon left. Same references, different side of the aircraft. And this time will be on the inside of the turn. And I'm still using roll on, roll off, and blipping the throttle and setting the pitch angle to maintain those references. There we go. He's going to roll out in a minute. So let's move on to what I called intermediate formation. This is the fighting wing or tack wing if you're in the US Navy. He's getting ready to roll out. And that's going to be the way that I fly that. I don't know. I have no idea what the book says. Can't remember. But we're not doing it by the numbers because we're not in the US Navy or the RAF. We're in DCS. So I'm going to use the same reference line as echelon for my forwardmost position for tack wing, and I'm going to use the forwardmost part of the fin being in line with the after the cockpit as my rearmost reference. There we go. And that means that the lead can always see where I am. Now this is actually too close for tack wing. The closest we would expect to be is 500 feet. And I'm going to move out to 500 feet now That's about 500 feet there. And for me, I can just about start to make out the markings on the aircraft at 500 feet. That's a little bit too far. Maybe that's probably about 700-800 feet there. But the closest we want to be is 500 feet. Your mileage will vary because you'll have a different headset, or you'll be using track IR or something like that. The furthest we want to be in tack wing or fighting wing or whatever we're going to call it is 4,000 feet, and that's actually quite a long way back. But remember, the furthest back that we want to be is with the fin in line with the canopy. The furthest forward we want to be is having that sidewinder rail underneath the leading edge extension. And for me, 4,000 feet, I'm just starting to lose definition on the aircraft. I could probably just about ID it on this headset at this range as a Hornet, but it looks a bit like an F-14 as well. And so I'm limited for this formation as much by the headset as I am by anything else. Now the benefit of this formation is that it's fluid. I can move anywhere within that 4,000 feet to 500 foot range, backwards and forwards within those references, as long as I remain inside those boundaries. Then lead's going to be happy with me. I can also swap sides, so if he decides to turn, then I can swap sides. We're not quite due a turn yet. Okay, that's about as close as I would want to be there in fighting wing, tack wing, whatever. But I can come up and I can cross over lead's wake using the same roll-on, roll-off techniques. Look at that. We've got wings level and we've got regenerating separation. Roll-on, roll-off again to stop that separation. And we're in tack wing, fighting wing, whatever on the other side. And so it just gives us a fluid formation that we can operate it. For tactical formation, you're going to be out in tack form, and I said I was going to discuss that at the start of the video. I'm not actually going to cover that today because I'll be able to do a separate video on that at some point. I'm running slightly long here, and it is a huge topic in and of itself, tactical formation. So I'm not actually going to cover that today. What I will do is I'll briefly cover joining and breaking away from close formation. So having shown you tack wing, here we are in tack wing, tack fighting wing, whatever you want to call it. Let's go over the top and set ourselves up into tack wing in the other direction. And going over the top obviously ensures that wing can see us throughout our manoeuvre. Lead rather can see us throughout the manoeuvre. It gives him a little bit of comfort factor. And obviously, because this isn't as doesn't require as much concentration as flying in close formation, I can also be using my weapons and sensors and things like that while we're in this formation. It gives me a little bit more opportunity to scan inside, build some SA, check my fuel, do all that sort of stuff. So let's come up and go right over the top into tack wing the other way. Okay, now quite a lot of time when people join formations in DCS, you'll see this. They'll get a stack of overspeed, they'll come roaring down this line here. They get absolutely fixated on what it is they're trying to do, which is join up with the leader, and they don't realise, because of a thing called visual bloom or optical bloom, that we've got way too much speed on, and what am I going to do? And they end up having to break out the formation very unsafely. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to join and keep those factors under control. So here we are, we're visual with the leader. He's all the way over there, and we're going to get some altitude. And if we were on SRS, or if we were operating on a radio, we would call him up and ask if we can rejoin, tell him we're visual, get all that important stuff squared away. We're a fair way away now, and we've got a fair bit of overspeed, and he would call us the heading height and speed that he's on and clear us in to join. So we're going to get ourselves on that heading height and speed so that we're in roughly the right ballpark but we're still going to maintain our distance, and we're going to be about 1,000 feet above the leader. Okay, so here we are. He's called us 290 knots, 170 at 15,000. So we're up at 16, just above 16,000 feet, going in the right direction at about the right speed. And we can, if he manoeuvres now, or if we have to move, we can do so safely laterally. We know we're not going to hit him because we're at a different height. So here we go. Now, we're going to have to catch up with him. So we're going to maintain our lateral distance. We're going to dive. We're going to put ourselves about 1,000 feet below, and that dive is going to allow us to pick up airspeed and move forward along that line. So there we are. We're down at just below 15,000 feet, and we're starting to move forward. Haven't touched the throttle. Starting to move forward onto that reference line now. Once you've got a bit of practice with this, you'll be able to do it a little bit quicker than I'm demonstrating. But to start off with, you really want to take it nice and slowly. Now, as we get into what we perceive to be the right sort of position fore and aft, we can pitch up and use that height speed interchange to bleed off our speed, so that as we come up and we're co-altitude with lead, we should be in about the right speed regime. So there we are, 290 knots. We now need to add a little bit of power. And now we can start roll on, roll off to come down that bearing line nice and slowly, using the blipping of the throttle to maintain ourselves on that primary reference line. We're not adding any more roll, we're just letting that initial setting to carry us towards lead. And if we feel like we're getting a little bit, we're accelerating towards him a little bit quickly, we can roll on, roll off in the opposite direction. We're going to come down that primary reference line. We're actually a little bit too far forward because I couldn't get my references at range. Terrible demonstration. Let me try that again. We'll come out to where I can actually perceive the references. Right, here we are. So let's roll on, roll off. We've got a sensible amount of overtake through blipping the throttle, and we're going to ride down that primary reference line. Roll on, roll off to control our rate of closure. And there we are, in close formation. A little bit too far forward again. And that allows us to rejoin formation under control without generating those huge amounts of overspeed. Some people refer it to ABC, altitude, bearing, and closure. I think it's altitude, bearing, closure. I think that's a US Navy thing. Go on to, if you've got the links, if you can still get onto the videos, there's a great series of videos by a guy called Lex, who I think was a former Hornet pilot, and he's obviously got way more experience doing this sort of stuff than me, and he's actually done it in a Hornet. So, you know, take his word for it, not mine, if you can find the videos. Somebody will have a link, I'm sure. So that's it. That's all I've got to say on formation, really, for the time being. It does require a lot of practice to get right, but it is going to be necessary for you to do things like tanking and also a lot of multiplayer groups are going to want you to be able to fly in formation in order to join in with them. That said, there are still plenty of people who won't need you to be able to fly in close formation. Certainly if you come flying with me, I don't care what kind of level you're at, we'll do something that that is going to give you value and introduce you to more of the sim, and hopefully give you an enjoyable experience. That's the main thrust of all this here, because let's face it, we're not we're not here to learn how to be fighter pilots. We are not here to for the ego or to rack up a kill to death ratio or whatever. We are here for a good time. It's as an entertainment product, so let's use it as such. So come flying with me, find me on Pascal's server, and we'll just go and have some fun, and hopefully you'll learn something about air warfare in the process. So thanks very much for bearing with me. I appreciate it's very difficult to discern exactly what I'm doing with the controls. Bear in mind, fly smoothly, use roll on, roll off, blip the throttle, and you'll be flying formation in no time with enough practice. I'll see you next time.